The backyard was loud with children's laughter, but the disrespect from my daughter-in-law was much louder. It was my grandson Leo's 7th birthday, but it also happened to be my 68th. My daughter-in-law Chloe had insisted on combining the celebrations to keep things simple and efficient. I knew perfectly well that meant saving my money specifically since she and my son Mark lived in my house, completely rent-free. Chloe commanded the patio like a general, handing out elaborate custom-made gift bags to her friends and their children. I sat quietly in my favorite wicker chair under the oak tree, observing the scene while sipping iced tea. Mark hovered near the barbecue grill flipping burgers and purposefully avoiding eye contact with me, his usual tactic whenever his wife took control of the room. When the towering chocolate cake was finally cut and distributed, Chloe turned her attention toward me. She strutted over, holding a crumpled, half-transparent plastic shopping bag from a local discount store. She didn't hand it to me gently. She tossed it directly into my lap like a sack of garbage. Poor old people get poor gifts. Chloe sneered, projecting her voice loud enough for the neighboring tables to catch every word. The cheerful chatter around us died instantly. Mark stared intensely at his shoes. A few of Chloe's friends exchanged uncomfortable smirks, waiting for my reaction. I looked down at the wrinkled plastic. Inside sat a single bottle of cheap, generic brand dish soap. It was a clear, calculated message about what she thought my role in this house should be: the silent maid. I didn't cry. I didn't shake with anger. I simply pulled out my smartphone and opened my banking application. I looked up, meeting her arrogant gaze dead on. "Like the bills you can't pay without my money?" Chloe went white. Her smug, victorious smile vanished, instantly replaced by a mask of sheer panic. Mark finally stepped forward, hurriedly wiping his greasy hands on his apron. "Mom, come on. It's just a joke. Don't ruin Leo's party over a joke." I stood up slowly, leaving the plastic bag resting on the chair cushion. "I'm not ruining anything, Mark. I'm just adjusting my personal budget." I turned my back on the silent crowd and walked inside the house. It was time to stop being a convenient ATM. The quiet of my bedroom felt like a sanctuary after the humid, tense atmosphere of the backyard. I sat down at my small oak desk, booted up my laptop, and took a deep breath. For 3 long years, Mark and Chloe had occupied the upstairs bedrooms of my home. The arrangement was originally pitched as a temporary grace period, a chance for them to save aggressively for a down payment. Instead, the driveway mysteriously gained 2 brand-new SUVs, and Chloe's closet constantly overflowed with expensive designer boxes. I pulled up my bank statement, studying the numbers with a cold, clear focus. Every single month, an automatic transfer of $1,200 went directly into Mark's checking account for what they called household contributions. In reality, it meant I subsidized their lavish lifestyle while they lived free of charge. I paid the electricity, the water, the heating, and even covered their joint premium cell phone plan. With 3 deliberate clicks of my mouse, I canceled the recurring $1,200 transfer. Next, I logged into the mobile carrier's online portal. I removed my credit card from the autopay settings, separated my number, and downgraded my own line to a basic, inexpensive individual plan. An hour later, I heard the backyard party finally winding down. The heavy front door opened and closed. Footsteps heavily approached my room, followed by a soft, hesitant knock. Mark peeked his head through the doorway. He looked utterly exhausted. "Mom, Chloe is crying upstairs. She is really upset. You embarrassed her in front of all her friends. She tossed dish soap at me and loudly called me poor," I replied, never taking my eyes off my computer screen. "She has a weird, sarcastic sense of humor. You know she's stressed about her new job. Just come out and apologize so we can smooth things over." I closed my laptop with a soft snap and finally looked at my son. He had grown so incredibly passive, so willing to bend his own reality just to avoid domestic conflict. I am not apologizing for stating a mathematical fact, I answered softly. You both need to start taking care of your own expenses, starting today. Mark sighed heavily, clearly, convincing himself this was just a temporary mood swing. We'll talk about this tomorrow when you've calmed down. He shut the door, leaving me alone. I smiled lightly to myself. I was perfectly calm. Tomorrow morning, they were going to have a very interesting awakening. Morning sunlight washed over my granite kitchen counters, bringing a sense of renewal to the house. I stood by the bay window, carefully grinding my favorite dark roast coffee beans. I had kept this expensive blend hidden on my private pantry shelf for months. Usually, I drank the cheap instant coffee Chloe bought in bulk just to avoid an inevitable argument about taking up too much space in the cabinets. Not anymore. Chloe marched down the wooden stairs, still dressed in her matching silk pajamas. She completely ignored my presence, aggressively opening the refrigerator and frowning at the contents. We're entirely out of almond milk, she complained loudly to the empty room, expecting me to write it down. I poured boiling water into my French press, silently watching the rich steam rise. Mark shuffled down a few minutes later, staring intensely at his phone screen. His brow furrowed in deep confusion. Mom. The monthly transfer didn't go through at midnight. Is there a bank glitch? No glitch, I answered, pressing the coffee plunger down with slow, deliberate pressure. I canceled it permanently. Chloe slammed the refrigerator door shut, rattling the jars inside. What? You can't just do that. We have utility bills on auto pay. Then you will need to pay them with your own money from now on. I sipped my coffee. It tasted significantly better than it had in years. Mark aggressively rubbed his temples. Mom, please be reasonable. We talked about this. We're trying to save for our future. You have lived in this house rent-free for 36 months, Mark. Your savings should be massive by now. I placed my ceramic mug firmly on the counter. I will no longer fund your personal checking accounts. Furthermore, the phone bill is out of my name. You have exactly until the 5th of the month to set up your own plan before they disconnect you. Chloe crossed her arms tightly, her face flushing a deep, angry red. This is because of a stupid joke. You're actually going to act like a petty, vindictive child over a birthday gag. A joke is supposed to evoke laughter, I countered mildly. I simply realized you were right. I am an old woman, and I need to fiercely protect my limited retirement finances. I rinsed my spoon in the sink, deliberately turning my back on her furious glare, and walked toward the sunlit patio. You're going to turn that transfer back on right now, Hazel, Chloe shrieked behind me. Or I'm taking Leo and moving to my mother's house for the summer. I paused at the sliding glass door, glancing back over my shoulder. Your mother lives in a tiny one-bedroom apartment with 2 cats, Chloe. Good luck fitting all your designer clothes in there. By Tuesday morning, the stark reality of my financial withdrawal truly began to sting them. I had driven down to the local hardware store, purchased a sturdy, high-quality mini fridge, and installed it quietly in my bedroom closet. I meticulously stocked it with fresh fruits, premium deli meats, and the rest of my good coffee. I left the main kitchen refrigerator entirely to them. By Wednesday evening, it was completely bare, save for half a bottle of old ketchup and the exact bottle of dish soap Chloe had tossed at me, which I had quietly placed right in the center of the middle shelf. I was peacefully reading a thriller novel in the living room when Chloe stomped loudly downstairs, her sleek work laptop clutched tightly against her chest. The Wi-Fi network is down, she demanded, planting herself directly between me and the television screen. I have a crucial Zoom meeting in 10 minutes. Fix it. I leisurely turned a page of my book. The Wi-Fi equipment is functioning perfectly. I simply updated the router password. Her jaw physically dropped. Give the new password to me right now. I work from home. The internet account is registered in my name, and I pay the monthly premium. Since you loudly announced I was poor, I realized I need to conserve my expensive bandwidth. I didn't raise my voice a single decibel. I kept my eyes focused on the printed page. Are you completely insane? Chloe shrieked, her voice echoing off the walls. Mark, get down here immediately. Mark hurried awkwardly down the stairs, his tie half knotted, looking panicked. What? What's going on now? Your lunatic mother cut me off the internet. I'm going to get fired from my job. Mark looked at me, his eyes pleading for mercy. Mom, this is taking it too far. She needs that stable connection to earn a living. I gently closed my book and placed it squarely on the coffee table. Then she can call the local cable company and have a separate line installed today. Or she can use her phone's mobile hotspot. Assuming, of course, you figured out how to pay your phone bill yesterday. Mark physically flinched. He hadn't. The service interruption warning had likely already hit his inbox that morning. Chloe paced the hardwood floor, her manicured fingers digging into her laptop case. You cannot treat us like unwelcome strangers in our own home. My home, I corrected gently, picking my book back up. My name is on the deed. My name is on the utility bills. You are long-term guests who have grossly overstayed their welcome. The following morning, Chloe clearly decided to try a different, more manipulative tactic. She woke up unusually early, dressed Leo for school, and marched him into the kitchen where I was quietly brewing my morning tea. I need you to watch him this afternoon, Chloe announced, purposefully avoiding eye contact as she rummaged through her purse. I have an emergency client meeting in the city, and Mark is working late on a project. Pick him up at 3 o'clock sharp. Before the birthday party incident, this was standard operating procedure. They never politely asked. They simply assigned me duties. I loved my grandson dearly, but he was actively being used as a pawn to force my compliance. I crouched down, meeting Leo at eye level, and handed him a warm blueberry muffin I had baked. Have a wonderful day at school, sweetie. Learn a lot. I stood back up, straightening my spine, and looked directly at Chloe. I am entirely unavailable at 3 o'clock today. You will need to make alternative arrangements. Chloe froze in place, her car keys dangling from her index finger. What exactly do you mean, unavailable? You don't do anything all day? You're completely retired. I have personal plans, I replied smoothly, taking a sip of my tea. And I am not your unpaid, on-call nanny. If you don't pick him up, he'll be left sitting alone in the school office crying. She threatened, her voice pitching up hysterically. Then the school administration will call his legal guardians. That is you and Mark. I walked casually past her, carrying my mug. I highly suggest you leave right now, or you'll hit the morning bridge traffic. I spent my peaceful afternoon at a local garden nursery buying fresh hydrangeas for the front yard. My phone buzzed aggressively 4 times. 3 frantic calls from Mark, 1 furious text from Chloe. I silenced the device and kept shopping. When I finally returned home at 4 o'clock, Mark's SUV was parked haphazardly across the driveway grass. Inside, he was aggressively pacing the kitchen floor, while Leo happily watched cartoons in the living room. You actually didn't pick him up, Mark breathed out, looking at me as if I were a dangerous stranger. I had to leave work early. My boss was absolutely furious. Welcome to actual parenthood, Mark. I answered neatly, setting my gardening gloves on the counter. It requires personal sacrifice. He dragged a heavy hand down his exhausted face. This isn't just about the birthday money anymore, is it? That evening, long after Leo was put to bed, Mark knocked softly on my bedroom door. He didn't look angry. He just looked thoroughly defeated. I stepped aside, letting him enter my space. He slumped onto the edge of the small armchair positioned by the window. "Mom, we have absolutely no money," he confessed quietly, staring at the floorboards. I sat back down at my desk, meticulously folding a hardware store receipt. "You make a very comfortable salary, Mark. Chloe works full-time in marketing. Where exactly has it all gone?" He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a thick, crumpled stack of unopened envelopes. "I checked the physical mailbox today before Chloe got home. I haven't been looking at the mail for over a year. She always insisted on handling it." He dropped the heavy stack of letters onto my desk. They were bold, red, final notices for 3 different high-limit credit cards, all completely maxed out. She repeatedly told me we had $40,000 saved for a house. He whispered, his voice cracking slightly. "She's been buying designer bags, booking weekend spa trips with her friends, and hiding the paper statements. The $1,200 you sent us every month, she used it entirely to pay the minimum balances to keep the accounts active." I didn't gasp dramatically or offer him a warm, comforting hug. I simply looked down at the alarming paper trail. I had suspected something was deeply wrong when delivery trucks arrived almost every other day, but seeing the grim reality in print was still stark. "You allowed her to completely manage your joint finances without ever verifying the accounts," I pointed out, calmly stating a fact rather than an insult. "I trusted my wife. And now the phone company is actively threatening to cut us off, and we don't even have enough cash to cover a deposit if we leave." He looked up, his eyes wide and pleading. "Mom, you have to help us. Just temporarily, until we clear this immediate debt." I did help you, Mark. Consistently for 3 years. And my reward was being publicly humiliated in my own backyard while you stood there and watched. I know I was a coward. I admit it." I slid the stack of envelopes back across the desk toward him. "You still are. You're desperately asking me to fix a leak in a boat that Chloe is actively drilling new holes into." He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. "So, you're just going to stand back and watch us sink?" "I am not watching you sink," I told Mark evenly, keeping my posture straight. "I am simply stepping off your boat." I opened a desk drawer, pulled out a single sheet of printed paper, and handed it directly to him. It was a standard, legally sound lodger's agreement I had printed out earlier that morning. "This is a formal 30-day notice," I explained, tapping the top of the page. "Starting the 1st of next month, if you and your family wish to remain living in this house, you will pay me fair market rate rent. That is $1,800 a month, plus exactly half the utility costs." Mark stared blindly at the crisp white paper, as if it were coated in poison. "Mom, we literally just established 3 minutes ago that we are completely broke. Then you have 30 days to find a cheap apartment that accepts your ruined credit score, or you sell the designer bags to make the rent payment. It is entirely up to you." Before he could formulate a response, the bedroom door flew open. Chloe stood in the doorway, panting slightly, her furious eyes darting between me and the red-stamped envelopes sitting on the desk. "What exactly are you doing?" she demanded, marching aggressively into my room. "Are you secretly going through my private mail? It's our joint mail, Chloe." Mark snapped back, his long-held passivity finally cracking under the pressure. "You lied to my face. There is no down payment fund." Chloe's face flushed a violent crimson, but she stubbornly refused to back down. Instead, she pivoted and turned her intense anger entirely on me. "You manipulative old bat. You planned this whole thing. You maliciously cut off the money just to expose me." "I cut off the money because you deeply disrespected me." I corrected her, my tone remaining entirely flat and unaffected. "Your catastrophic financial ruin is your own doing. I simply removed the thick rug you were sweeping it all under." She lunged forward, grabbed the rent notice right out of Mark's trembling hand, quickly scanned the bold text, and tore it violently in half. "We are not paying you a single dime. You wouldn't dare kick your own innocent grandson out onto the street." I bent down, calmly picked up the torn pieces from the floor, and tossed them neatly into the wastebasket. "The notice is binding whether you tear it up or not. 30 days, Chloe. Start packing or start paying." Chloe tried to wage a petty war by leaving dirty dishes piled high and blasting the television late at night. I ignored her entirely. On a Tuesday afternoon, while Mark and Chloe were at their offices, a moving truck backed into my driveway. 2 men carried out my velvet sectional sofa, the heavy glass coffee table, and the dining set. Chloe used them exclusively as stylish backdrops for her social media photos, but I bought them. I sold it all for cash on a local community marketplace. When Chloe and Mark arrived home, the downstairs was completely empty except for my single reading chair. Chloe dropped her purse, her mouth wide open. "We've been robbed!" she shrieked, reaching for her phone. "No one was robbed," I called out casually from the kitchen, wiping the counter. "I sold my furniture." Mark walked in thoroughly confused. "Why?" "Since you blatantly refuse to pay rent, I need side income to cover the utility bills you no longer contribute to," I replied. Chloe physically trembled. "Where are we supposed to sit?" "There are folding chairs stored in the garage." Leo ran in, oblivious to the tension. "Grandma, it's a dance floor in here." I smiled at him. "It really is, Leo." Chloe grabbed his arm and stomped upstairs. Mark lingered, staring at the empty room. "You're serious about all of this?" I have never been more serious. The shockingly empty house finally broke Chloe's stubborn illusion. Without the plush couch or free groceries, the harsh reality set in. Muffled arguments upstairs became a nightly routine, which I slept through using foam earplugs. On day 25 of the eviction notice, I was watering my new hydrangeas when Mark approached me. He looked noticeably thinner, but his eyes held a brand new clarity. "We found a place," he announced quietly. "A small apartment across town. It's cramped, but it's what we can actually afford." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I sold my golf clubs, and I took Chloe's designer bags to a consignment shop while she was at work." I raised a skeptical eyebrow. I imagine she didn't like that. She screamed hysterically for hours, threatened to pack her bags and leave. I pointed at the front door and told her she could go, but I was taking Leo. She miraculously stopped screaming. It was the most backbone my son had shown in a decade. "The movers come Saturday," he continued. "Mom, I'm really sorry. For the party, for the money, for everything. Empty apologies don't rebuild trust, Mark. Consistent actions do. Focus on your son and fixing your finances. Are you ever going to forgive us?" I coiled the hose neatly. Right now, we're just finishing this chapter. Saturday morning arrived with the rumble of a cheap rental truck. The sprawling house felt entirely different the second their truck pulled away from the curb. The indoor air was instantly lighter, no longer thick with bitter resentment and unspoken demands. I spent the weekend deep cleaning, letting the crisp autumn breeze sweep through the dusty hallways. Life rapidly settled into a peaceful rhythm. I drank my expensive coffee in the sunroom and never once had to hide my premium groceries again. A month later, a small package arrived in the mail. It was a framed photo of Leo sent by Mark. The handwritten note attached read, "Leo misses you. We're strictly budgeting now. It's incredibly hard, but we're managing. Love, Mark." There was no mention of Chloe. I placed the photo carefully on my clean mantelpiece. I would visit Leo eventually strictly on my own terms at a public park. The exhausting days of being a convenient ATM were permanently over. That afternoon, I walked through a local upscale department store. I picked up a high-end artisan soap that smelled of fresh lavender. I paid for it at the register, smiling widely to myself. Poor old people absolutely do not get poor gifts. Smart old people simply buy their own, knowing exactly what their peace of mind is truly worth. I drove back to my spotless home. When I locked the deadbolt behind me, the profound silence wasn't lonely. It was the undeniable sound of absolute freedom.